What is the good world word? What is the good word, everybody? This is your boy, the Sports Doctor Spock, Mickey Coleman. I'm coming to you from YouTube and Instagram, and don't forget to check out the Mick and Mike podcast tonight. Well, I guess it would be tonight that it's being recorded. You guys won't see this video to after episode 7 of the Mick and Mike podcast, which will be our first live podcast on YouTube, and it'll also be probably on our pages, respective Instagram pages also. Here we're gonna review fair use, YouTube, fair use. This will be fair use. I'm doing commentary on episode 5 of the Mr. McMahon documentary. So without further ado, let's get it started. This one is called Family Business.
In which he is untouchable and invulnerable
Just Paul
to
Heyman.
outside forces and in control of his own destiny.
What we know about Vince McMahon's childhood, we only know from Vince McMahon. Years ago, he did a Playboy interview that talked about his upbringing, that talked about the physical abuse that he suffered at the hands of his stepfather, and alluded to sexual abuse that he implied was at the hands of his mother.
Right now, they're bringing in his mother. They're wheeling her in a wheelchair, and she's got to be in her 90s at this time, or pretty close to it. I don't know how much older she was than Vince, but I know she's if Vince is 70. She's got to be at least 85. It seems like he still treats her very well. After it was just being said that there was alleged sexual abuse brought on by her towards him. Also, that was the guy that spoke so eloquently in the beginning of the video. That was Paul Heyman. Let's continue on with the video. Oh, and yeah, it wouldn't be nobody else really to tell us that much about somebody his age, because how many people are still around from his childhood, or even just his mother, and even his wife. She didn't meet him till he was 16 years old, so he was basically a adult by the time that they met. Let's continue on.
I'm not big at looking backwards at all. I don't know whether or not I'm afraid to look back, what's back there. My childhood was what it was. It was difficult. I mean, there's fighting, there's infighting, there's incest, and you don't like it. But I felt that as a kid, when you're getting the crap beat out of you, once he stops, if you're still breathing, you're still living, you win. I know from a psychological standpoint, when you're abused as a kid, the tendency is for you to abuse. I think sometimes that's just a cop-out. I've never subscribed to that. Anything that's rotten like that or anything bad that happens to you, get rid of it. What the hell? Will it come forward on occasion? Sure. Will it hurt on occasion? Sure. But throw it the fuck back there and go forward.
Very interesting way of looking at things, because they say people who are abused actually abuse people. The sexual abuse, I haven't heard anything about any sexual abuse or his kids being physically abused at all. And if it has, they're keeping that pretty much in the family. But it doesn't sound like he did his children like that as far as sexual or physical abuse. Even though he went through it, and like he said, you break generational curses. Just because you were treated a certain way and it's wrong, doesn't mean you have to treat your children a certain way. You may need therapy before you even have children if you ever went through anything like that. If you ever went through anything like that, I would suggest talking about it and seeking professional help, especially if you're thinking of having children or you're with somebody or you have children on the way. Get that out, get all that out the way, get all your baggage out the way before your kids come so you don't end up mistreating your kids.
Coming up next, you will see for the first time ever Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon, the only two children of Vince and Linda McMahon, talking about what it's like to have their lives unfold before the cameras. I'm fascinated to know, what was it like growing up as a McMahon?
You want to start? Go for it.
Being Vince McMahon's son, I grew up in a very interesting world. I always wanted.
Now they're showing pictures of him as a kid and pictures of him and Vince and him, Vince and Hulk. I think Shane, being the boy, pretty much had it the roughest out of the two as a child. Because even though he's the son, he doesn't seem anything like his dad. Shane, well, I'll let them tell you.
To be in the business, and the business of the business specifically. I started at a very early age. I remember being in the audience, I remember being backstage, was all over the place, just soaking it all in. You know, I would sweep the ring, I would take the guys' jackets back. And when I became referee and ring announcer, and you start earning your stripes.
Shane and Mr McMahon.
My involvement as a performer started as a surrogate to my dad.
Did you see Shane there holding the ropes for his daddy?
You know, if my dad pissed somebody off, you couldn't get to the boss right away. You have to go through different layers. And it caught on, and everybody.
That's very funny. They show somebody going after Vince, and Vince basically just pushing his son in the way, while the son takes the abuse and Mr. McMahon gets away. That's pretty funny. I don't ever remember him being a ring announcer though. I do remember him refereeing and doing everything else. He was a part of the crew that put the ring together and everything. So I feel like Shane paid his dues. In the as far as working for his dad's company. I mean, he started at the bottom, did all that for a while, and then he ended up being a performer.
I was having fun, and I just ran with it.
A tremendous chorus of booze for the boy wonder, the heir apparent to the throne.
I loved it, getting the ability to go do something I've always wanted to do since I was very little. So that's how the family dynamic started to grow, and eventually became Vince's daughter.
Let me jump in for just 1 second, please. I have always wanted to be a part of this company, and I'm so proud to be today.
Growing up, it was larger than life. And I could feel that as a kid. It was just the most exciting thing to be a part of. WWE has always been polarizing. And
Also, when you look at Stephanie, she looks a lot like Vince. Same demeanor. Was in the business. Never really left the business till recently. And she seems to really. They both really seem to enjoy the business and are pretty good performers to me. Um, since they've been a part of it. Let me make sure this mic can. Y'all hear me? Go ahead.
when I was growing up, some people would love me just because of who my father was, and some people
Instagram, we
would
probably
not give
won't
me
be
the time
on
of day
for a real
because of who
long
my
time.
father was.
I think Instagram only gives you an hour.
young daughter, Stephanie McMahon. When did it first get broached about you being a character?
It was after I graduated college.
Just relax, no pressure. Everything will be good.
You gonna take it easy on me?
Oh, without a doubt.
A decision was made in a very short period of time to give it a try and see how it went.
When Steph started to work with us, it escalated incredibly fast. There was a storyline where Steph was getting married to a talent named Test. But the writers, they didn't know what the payoff was. There was never an ending to the story. So I come up with an idea.
Yeah, they didn't know what the payoff was because the original writers who wrote it, Vince Russo being one, and I forget the other name, had left and pretty much went to WCW. So there was really no payoff. So they had to get real creative. I'm not sure if they even knew before they left how they were going to pay it off. I think they were just trying to see where it goes. But uh, um, the way it ended, if you could take a listen, was pretty funny to me.
Yeah. What if I was at her bachelorette party and I Mickey'd her drink? And then I end up getting married to her like at one of those drive-through things in Vegas. He's like, man, I love that. Oh my God.
And his line is, and Vince, it's not a question of if, but how many times.
Consummate the marriage.
God, I cannot believe that.
The first time we go back on TV after this whole angle happened, the crowd turns on her and they're chanting slut. And Vince, as they're going crazy for her, he looks at me and he goes, meaning like this is money.
The sign he made was this. Even see in wrestling, even if you get booed, as long as you get an intense reaction, that's good. Um, then smartly they'll make you more of a heel, depending on the reaction that you get. And they were going crazy on Stephanie over this, so they figured out a way to end the story of Stephanie getting married to Test. Rest in peace, Test.
Because that means the audience is participating. Anytime the audience is participating, they're loving what it is you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So Steph became this great heel. You know, I mean, she was willing to do anything. You know, she's always been, you know, whatever it is you want, Dad. You know, she knew what I was trying to do. If anybody knows anything about screwing, it's you.
When I was younger in my career, I was just all on board to do whatever he wanted. I totally look back on some of the stuff I did and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Yeah, for sure.
Did you think it was weird that your dad was having you do that?
Yes, sometimes I thought it was a little bit weird, but it was a different time in our business.
Yeah, I mean, we all. That's life. When you grow just a little bit older, you look back at some of the stupid shit you did when you were younger. Like, damn, did I really do that? But you know, that stuff plays out on TV. Some of the things she decided to do for her dad's company. So now her children get to see some of the silly and inappropriate things that they saw their mother do when their mother was younger. So now you do kind of look back like, damn, did I do that? So this was a little bit before, you know, she had kids. she was doing some of this stuff. Getting kissed by wrestlers, getting her shirt ripped off on national TV, basically being called a slut, and The Rock was like, speaking of screwing people, it was all that was done pretty much, and she agreed to all that pretty while she was younger and didn't really have children or anybody that might watch that to be like, what the fuck? But let's continue on with the story.
Of all the crazy stuff that's happened in my life, from starting out as a fan to where I am, the family part of it would probably be the craziest. So after this storyline where Steph gets married to me secretly against her will, it became this whole thing, the McMahon Helmsley era, and now we're running WWE.
The McMahon Helmsley era.
That's where I'm with her every day. And that's how we get to know each other, really.
I was not allowed to date our talent, but it was my dad who, ironically, sort of pushed us together.
Paul is a wonderful human being. He and I were friends. And I would even lead and say, Steph, you need to find somebody, a real man, someone like Triple H.
And then my brother would say, not Triple H. And my dad would go, oh, yeah, no, of course, not Triple H. But, a guy just like him.
Shane was very much against it, vehemently so.
Guys make me sick. Hey, brothers, come on, give me a hug.
Storylines 101, don't date the boss's daughter. Shane, give me Dad. You're gonna let your daughter date a wrestler? Shane, that's who I am. I'm wrestling, I'm performing. I don't know what you mean by that. And so, to me, it made sense for Stephanie to date and marry someone like Paul. As it's moving forward, there are moments in time where it's Vince, and he's Vince McMahoning this, and like even just as we're looking for locations for the wedding at one point in time, he seriously suggests to us holding it on pay-per-view. So what if Stephanie and Paul's wedding was live on pay-per-view? Wow, people would buy that. It'd be awesome. It'd be great. And Steph said, no. And when Steph says absolutely not, he's like selfish and like, I can't believe you're selfish. And then Vince books Vince versus Steph in, I believe, a street fight 6 days before our legitimate wedding.
I remember my mom actually threatening my dad that if I had a black eye or a broken ankle from my wedding, that she would divorce him on the spot. Needless to say, I had no black eye. I had no broken ankle. I may have gotten choked out in the match, but that's a little bit different.
Yeah, just craziness. Full on craziness.
What the hell kind of family did I marry into? You guys have got...
You could you can see in a match where Vince is pretty much taking all kinds of liberties with his daughter. He was probably upset and gave her a couple of bumps. I don't know how stiff he really was with his daughter in a match, but I guess that was his way of punishing her, is getting in a ring with her. But at least he put her in a ring with him where he could kind of take care of her instead of putting her in a ring with somebody that's a little bit stiffer than he would be with her. All right.
A the most dysfunctional family on the planet.
They created that McMahon family soap opera, and the kids ended up being very, very popular.
Dave Meltzer.
Super popular.
Where was Linda during all this time?
She was definitely a big part of all of this.
Linda McMahon!
Linda was very important in the company.
The World Wrestling Federation is known as Vince McMahon's company. The name that you seldom hear was that of Linda McMahon, and she is the chief executive officer of this company.
there weren't a lot of titles, okay, when I came on. It was Vince was the boss, Linda was the
Pritchard.
second boss. Linda handled the business. Vince handled the creative and the vision. Oh, my mom introduced me to Linda, my wife. I think I was 16. Linda grew up in a very middle class family. Both parents worked in nice houses, not rich, but real middle class. And I was just sort of attracted to that.
He had kind of, the bad boy reputation from high school. And so, I was the exact opposite. And you know what? I liked it.
Linda was like 17 when we got married, so very, very young. And I promised her that I'd always love her. And I promised her that there'd never be a dull moment. I definitely lived up to that promise.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna hurt me a lot worse than it hurts you. Get her. My mom never wanted to be on TV, ever. She hated being on television. She said, Vince, please don't put me in this position. I'm not a good actress.
Of the four of us, I'm probably the least comfortable in front of the camera. And I'm not nearly as good at it as Shane and Stephanie and Vince are. Congratulations, Triple H.
She wasn't a good actress, and she knew it, but Shane's involved, Stevie's involved, I'm involved. I think we can use you as a character.
So, without
Vince's versions is
further
on his
ado,
whole
allow
family.
me to present my wife Linda, accompanied by the beautiful Trish.
I came into the rest of it.
It's weird. Like Linda look better now than she did back then. Linda is 5 years younger than Vince, so she's in her 70s, late 70s, I guess. She still looks, she looks better than she used to. Um, but this storyline right here coming up is about to be a wild one. Y'all listen to this.
I was in a little bit of a non-traditional route. I was doing fitness modeling.
Fitness model, you know her from the cover of Muscle magazine. Trish Stratus.
As a fan growing up, I was heavily into when Cyndi Lauper came and she was with Wendy Rector. I mean, that was something I was like, oh my God, seeing a female in the ring at that point at my age was very cool to me. But when I first started in 2000, the female role was overtly sexual, I would say.
Well, Trish.
Mr. McMahon. One of my very first storylines was being paired with Vince McMahon. Knowing I was about to work with the boss and, with Mr. McMahon was a huge, huge opportunity. I was super excited about it.
Oh.
Well, see, like I said, in previous couple of videos, the women performers at this time were basically athletic models. So it would naturally be, especially going on here where he's trying to get ratings, you probably want to use them in more of a sexual way. It was some of the wildest storylines that you would see on primetime television at this time. Even though television at this time was a lot more sexual. Like I said, you could turn to Cinemax and see softcore porn basically at this time. I heard.
Be Vince's mistress.
I've been very bad, Vince. I deserve a spanking.
And you're gonna eventually drug his wife.
Did double up Linda's dosage, did you not?
Sure did. It wasn't quite pitched like because I might have been like, what am I gonna do now? It was something that evolved.
Right now.
It's like, let's see where we can take this. And wow, it took some interesting turns.
Get this now. I kissed Trish Stratus in front of my wife in a wheelchair.
Oh my God.
And the reason why we did that was to show what a despicable heel I was. I mean, you can't get any more despicable.
We were very aware of what we were doing to provide fuel for our storyline. And Linda was super cool about it too. she was in on it. You know, we were all in on it. There was a scene where I lean over and I kiss Linda. And that came from Linda. Like, she's like, oh, it would irk so many people if you would just like lean over and kiss me on the head.
What you must do is evoke emotion, whether it's anger, whether it's happiness, even sometimes disgust if the bad guy, went a little too far. But it's always about emotion.
Have a nice Valentine's Day, London.
The on-screen affair with Trish, what was the family's reaction to that one?
I don't think our family had an objection to it because they knew I was a character. Trish was a character. So, as I recall, I don't think anyone had a problem with it.
If anything is mentioned about my mom, usually my first reaction is no. My mom's kind of sacred to me, so I didn't quite like that one.
Shane said he was a little bit...
Okay. Well, Shane is a bit more conservative than the rest of us, so Shane may have had a little bit of a problem with that because he sometimes, when you get in too close to real now, I'm thinking, this is a storyline, this character is entertaining the audience. Just go with it.
Thing about this is they had Linda McMahon sedated in a chair just like this the whole time. And Trish Stratus and Vince are carrying on inappropriately, basically in front of her. I thought this was a pretty wild storyline, but I guess nobody had a problem with it except for Shane, because, that's his mama. Stephanie didn't really seem to care. Linda didn't really seem to care, but, boys and their mamas. I guess that's what it is. Stephanie is closer to Vince, and Shane's probably closer to Linda.
So 15 years later, I'll do interviews. We'll talk about the good old days, and it never fails. It will always be like, so there was this time, and I'm like, when you got on all four and you bark like a dog. I'm so...
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're that sorry, then prove to me just how sorry you are. Get on your hands and knees like a dog.
The bark like a dog scene obviously is very memorable and was really. Yeah, I wish they never did that one.
I used to have a female dog, and that bitch did everything I told her to do. Now, damn it, get out!
Dang.
Like
Damn, I didn't know he got.
Tell me you're sorry.
I know he got that wrong with you.
With the barking like a dog segment, they want me to be like, it was horrible, but that's exactly the feeling we wanted you to feel. Don't you get it?
If you're really, really sorry, Trish, take your clothes. I can't take it off now. What kind of man is this?
That is an amazing have your cake and eat it too kind of heel performance. Because at the same time that he's getting everybody to know that we're supposed to hate him, he's giving them a titty show.
You're sorry. You're sorry. Take your bra off and take it off now.
Knowing that he's bad for doing so. It doesn't get in the way of the pleasure of watching her be humiliated.
I thought the segment sucked when I saw it, but, wrestling was very much for guys. And guys who fantasized over hot women, but also kind of hated them because they could never get them. So therefore, seeing hot women demeaned was kind of cool to a lot of those guys. It's a very ugly way to say it.
All right, Dave. See, I thought that was kind of funny. Even back then, I believe I had a girlfriend that was very pretty. So whatever Mr. Meltzer was talking about is, whatever. But but maybe he's talking about people in general. I happen to find the segment entertaining. Who doesn't like titties? What the hell's wrong with him? He must be. I ain't even. All right, Mr. Meltzer.
That's exactly what it was.
We knew we were presenting a sensitive scene to the fans, and we knew that it was going to be talked about. We knew it was going to be interpreted and misinterpreted, but we were aware of that. And the thing is, when we did that scene, we knew the comeuppance would come at WrestleMania, the grandest stage of all.
Ultimately, it all played out at WrestleMania in a match, Shane against my dad.
It was son versus father. And one corner was my girlfriend, Trish, storyline. And in Shane's corner was Linda, my wife.
I had to stand up for the abuse that was going on with my mom. I just couldn't take it anymore, which would be accurate. And my sister taking the other side, like cutthroat, very much like my dad. I was so nervous going into that match because I've never raised a hand to my father. It's always been one way. When I was younger, my dad and I would wrestle. One time, my dad grabbed like all my rib meat. He went in there with the skin and everything else. And then I went, oh, and then as I peeled back, he grabbed my hair on the back end and then pushed me back. And I was like, you totally cheated. I go, you can't do that. He goes, that's what I do in life. I cheat and I win. He goes, learn that lesson. He says, sometimes you got to cheat. And I was like, all right. So before I went out to that match, I started kind of panicking a little. I was like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Shane to strike me, and I can't do it. Slap me, you can do that. No, I can't. I can slap you.
Bell rings. My dad hits me with about 4 shots to the face. It's like right off the bat.
Ruffled him a couple of times and got his attention, and okay, no problem now.
And I was like, boom, bam, and my eyes swelled up, immediately. I was like, oh, this may be a little easier than I thought.
That was my WrestleMania moment that year. I was able to stand up to Vince McMahon and everything he stood for. But I remember working with him on that moment. He's like, do not hold back. And I did not.
Stop.
During the match with Shane, Linda slowly stood up. It was a huge.
So during the match, Trish finally slaps Vince and walks off after being abused the last few weeks or whatever. And then Vince is getting ready to hit Shane later on in the match with a trash can, and Linda gets up out of her chair. Vince turns around and gets kicked in the nuts. I think it was by Shane. I don't. Forgot that quick. Short-term memory loss, boy. They'll do something about that shit. Go ahead.
The audience loves it when it looks like it's real. Sometimes it isn't real. These are real life McMahons. You build up the tension, you build up these characters, and then you have a resolution of the story. Oh, it feels so good. For Vince, nothing was off limits. What's real, what's not real, it doesn't matter. If it's going to draw money, if it's going to draw interest, anything that makes his business stronger is open for him.
I want you to give your message, and that is that soon, after this divorce is final, there's going to be a new Mrs. McMahon. A voluptuous Mrs. McMahon that can keep up with my sexual prowess.
Vince was a master of blurring storylines. He would twist something
He said that in front of his
out
daughter.
a piece of reality, and then just take it step by step into
She's
a
lying.
place where you didn't know what to believe and what you didn't believe.
You owe me, Sable. And when people like you owe me, I generally select.
Sable is probably one of the, as far as pure successes in marketing for a short period of time, she's one of the more underrated characters they ever had. I mean, she was a absolute ratings draw. Sable would get on the air and 500,000 people would tune in during her segments.
I think right now Sable is married to Brock Lesnar, and like I said was saying at the time, um, these girls at this time were basically models, very nice looking women, and at the time that's what they were using. They used that beauty to market them, and I think that was more prevalent than their actual ring work. Although I don't think Trish was really that bad. Sable Reyna Merrill was married to wrestler Mark Merrill, and Mark brought her in, and ended up basically sacrificing his in-ring career for her. We get more on that at a later time. Go ahead, Dave.
She left at the peak of her popularity and sued the company.
In this corner, former World Wrestling Federation Women's Champion Sable. Her opponent, Vince McMahon. At the center of this feud is a $110 million lawsuit that included charges of sexual harassment.
So they were like asking you to do things you didn't want to do.
Yes.
More or less. Okay.
They were making me do things I did not want to do, so.
Sable sued you, the WWF, for $110 million, alleging, amongst other things, she felt degraded.
I don't think I asked her to do anything that was degrading at all.
To another lawsuit. Who was Sable and how did she attack the organization?
Yeah, I don't remember much about Sable in terms of a lawsuit.
You don't remember any of the allegations or any of the things that came out of that?
No, I don't. It's kind of a blur, but all I know is she came back to work, so.
Stephanie McMahon, I want you to meet your new assistant, Sable.
Does Sable's body make you forget that Sable sued our company for millions of dollars? That Sable jumped on the bandwagon of any person who's trying to sue our company? It's all about money to her. That's all Sable cares about. And what did Sable sue for? Sue you? Sue me? She sued us for sexual harassment.
The thing with Vince is that Vince will do anything if he thinks it's the right thing for business, including hiring someone who sued him. Well, I guess there are ways to thank you. We started this.
When you brought her back, there was a storyline with your character where there was an affair.
With who?
With Sable.
Me.
Storyline.
John.
Because it's in the ring, we can be entertainingly appalled by whatever he says or does, but we have plausible deniability because it's just wrestling, it's just performance. We take for granted that Vince McMahon, in constructing Mr. McMahon, has pulled from his own personal story in order to appeal to us.
Do you remember in 2001 you did that Playboy interview?
Yes, right.
And you talked in that one about different affairs. I was curious why you would even go there in that article.
In that article, I just felt like I was very straightforward.
Some of the things he was saying in the Playboy article was how it crushed Linda with some of the affairs he had, and he, if you were able to read the article, was very open about some of his past adult discretions.
You know, it was like a very straightforward, honest reaction to the questions that were asked.
Did you feel like some of these storylines that came up later
Said he
were
learned about the
incorporating those
ramifications of a
elements from
sexual
your life,
relationship.
or was that totally unrelated?
Totally unrelated. You know, again, me as a human being, generally speaking, is not who that character is. Oh, sometimes people think it's the same thing, jokingly, but nonetheless, no.
Vince McMahon has had one truly monogamous relationship in his entire life. And that's with the business that he built. That's his passion. That's his love. That's his master. Vince doesn't own the business. This business owns Vince McMahon. And he super serves it with his heart and his passion and his life. And if that hurts his wife's feelings, Stephanie's feelings, Shane's feelings, his father's feelings, or his own feelings, those people be damned.
With wrestling's popularity soaring, the owners of the World
I really
Wrestling
enjoyed listening
Federation
to Paul
put their
Heyman
heads
speak.
together, and they've decided to sell stock in their circus.
The WWF is going public.
Going public meant a number of things. It made us legitimate, but the primary reason is simply business. The amount of money that was available to the company, it allowed us to go into the casino business. It allowed us to go into the restaurant business.
Wrestling fans went wild at the opening of a new restaurant bar in New York's Times Square.
We're right in the middle of it all, and that's really where we belong.
It also allowed to, when it was time for him to sell the company, since it was publicly traded, it was worth more money, so he got billions of dollars for the company. And he had billions of dollars worth of stock in the company still that he just now sold. So this dude is filthy rich as a result of turning his company into a publicly traded company. Good Lord, it's easy for me to say, right? I don't remember it ever being a casino, though. I don't ever remember a WWE casino.
You have that investment. You can move it around. You can reinvest in yourself naturally, which you've always done. And you can look at other things that might be of value.
Welcome, everybody, once again to WCW. Stidman and the franchise take their personal vendetta to the ring in a Viagra on a pole match.
By 2000, WWE had taken firm control of the Monday Night Wars against WCW. We would just kind of laugh at it.
Oh, like they stuff on Viagra.
It was a long, slow, painful.
I encourage y'all to watch this documentary. This is episode 5 called The Family Business with Billy Kidman wrestling and a whole big ass bottle of Viagra hung up, and he leaves with Viagra all in his mouth. It's the funniest shit ever, y'all. Check that out. Go ahead, Bruce.
Klein. It was a lot of different people in charge, and it just hit rock bottom.
Mickey Fair.
It felt like WCW wasn't even trying.
From a war perspective, you know, the guys fought as hard as they
Booker
could.
T. Hoffman.
I just don't think you can win a war if you don't have the right, people in the war room making the right decisions.
Get the hell out of my office, and I dare you. Get it right. I dare you.
Eric Bischoff do a lot of things right. Perhaps they do a lot of things wrong. Yes, he was the boss, but he dropped the ball.
It would be easy for someone to say, "Wow, look at Eric. He went from being really successful, and he let that success get to his head." I understand why someone would say that, but it's also someone who has no idea what was really going on behind the scenes.
It's the birth of the largest media and entertainment company in the world.
The $7.5 billion merger of Time Warner and Turner Broadcasting has been completed.
Things had gotten so bad internally at WCW because of the AOL Time Warner merger, where I was sitting in a room full of 12, 14 executives I'd never met before, telling me how I was going to produce wrestling when none of them had ever watched the product. None of those executives wanted WCW as a part of AOL Time Warner. Wrestling was lowbrow entertainment, despite the fact that it was hugely popular.
AOL was America Online, online, I guess, search engine. I guess it was the only way we could really get online on the internet. I think they were the first to really do it, and they merged with Time Warner, which was pretty much TNT, TBS, CNN, I believe the Atlanta Braves and WCW.
The narrative is that the merger comes and these people don't want wrestling. It's a crutch. WCW was putting out a terrible product.
Yeah, wrestling
Here
was
comes the
swimming pool.
buzzkill. Count me for 69.
I remember being told specifically, if our ratings were what they were and we weren't losing so much money, they were fine. When it became a big money-losing company, yes, they wanted to sell it for obvious reasons. And so that opened the door to Vince.
You listen to me, all right?
The company got a call from Turner to say, hey, we're thinking about selling this. Are you interested? The answer is yes.
And in about 3 days, the whole landscape of the business changed.
I often think about Ted Turner, and he said, yeah, when it comes to competition, I'm going to squish him like a bug. That didn't happen. Vince bought the company for $2.5 million, which he probably recouped a million times over. It was frickin' buying Manhattan for $24.
I was lucky to be on the charter plane the night he purchased WCW. We had a celebration on that flight.
I remember the plane ride was pure insanity. But the next day, business as usual.
It was done very quietly from a corporate level. But the way we communicated the purchase of WCW to the entire fan base was live on air.
Imagine that. Here I am on WCW television. How can that happen? Well, there's only one way. You see, it was just a matter of time before I, Vince McMahon, bought my competition. That's right. I own WCW. In negotiation, one of the things I wanted was 2 live shows on different networks to cross over.
We did a live simulcast, WCW's last Nitro in Panama City. WWE was in Cleveland. And that was the big reveal.
The audience, we're able to pull this off without it breaking beforehand. Obviously, you all know I have acquired WCW.
I was tempted to watch it, but I couldn't get myself to do it. It would be like finally admitting that I was really beat. And I couldn't get myself to do it.
You have to grab your competition by the throat, and you've got to squeeze the life out of your competition. Just like I did to WCW. It's not like I get this great joy by winning. This is really arrogant to say. I expect to win. So there's not this huge euphoria.
It's really incredible that he bought this company that just a couple years before was threatening to put them out of business with just $2.5 million. He got rid of his only competition, but by then, it wasn't really any competition. He was clearly winning. So I think whether Vince bought it or not, that they were going to pretty much sell to somebody and go out of business. So Vince is like, hey, why would not just buy it just for the icing on the cake? They tried to put me out of business, and I now own them.
Yeah, I won. Way to go. Anyway, that doesn't happen. It's gratifying, but I'm on to the next thing.
That was a tremendous high because they took him to the brink and he emerged victorious out of it. But on the one hand, it was a little bittersweet because Vince thrives under pressure and thrives under healthy competition. I think that brings out the best in him. But something is missing when you don't have that anymore. So, it's a new challenge now, like starting a football league.
Fans with football fever are about to have their cravings satisfied. There's a new game in town. WWF mastermind Vince McMahon. He's taking his marketing genius from the ring to the gridiron.
Today, we are confident in announcing our new brand, the XFL.
Complete disaster. I did try to watch some of the games, and the first game was absolutely hype. Absolutely. The way he tried to present it was his form of entertainment. The creative names on the back of the jerseys. Just the overall excitement of it that he tried to add on to it, kind of like going to a live wrestling event. He put all that into the football games, but the actual, well, yeah. Go ahead.
I announced out of nowhere that there was going to be a new football league. Not being prepared, not being in the football business, not knowing that much about football really, but I thought there's an opportunity to play football when the NFL is not.
McMahon says it will be the most exciting game in town. A brand new football league and one with a decidedly different attitude.
Where the players harder with themselves to be free.
What was his idea? Take the sport and put more of WWE flair and spin on it.
Cameras and microphones on players and coaches in the locker room.
I wanted football people could really relate to. Make characters out of everybody. We could follow that from a television standpoint, tell those stories so that you'd be more interested in the characters.
Well, I think it's going to be successful for a lot of reasons. We understand America. We understand what America wants to watch. In my view, this can't fail.
From a sold-out stadium in Las Vegas, ladies and gentlemen, this is XFL.
See how exciting that was? Exciting to open it up, exciting announcements, and it sold out. Exciting city, Las Vegas, Nevada. I don't think there's a city in the country more exciting than Las Vegas. Well, maybe Miami. I happen to be a huge Vegas fan. But it was all set up to be like sports entertainment with real football competition. Naked women, fans with beer, all kinds of fireworks. It just didn't work, and probably because the football was
First week of Expo Rage was huge. And from my standpoint, it was a success.
Curiosity seekers made the first night of the XFL a success, with the TV rating more than double what advertisers were told to expect.
think the answer to, are people willing to experiment with a Vince McMahon-led football league, was a resounding yes. Everybody wanted to see it. It was just that when they did see it, the quality of play was bad.
Valerian, the Hitman offense from their team to the line. Got it, 7. Not even swatted away, lost it.
The XFL had opened with a splash because there was heavy promotion. The football was not of high quality, but that didn't bother me. It was the whole WWF sensibility that surrounded it. I thought it was just head-bangingly stupid and crude. Now, people think I'm a little buttoned up about these things, but everything has its place. If there's some wit surrounding it, if there's some element of art or cleverness or high craft surrounding it, then I don't give a fuck, okay? I don't give a fuck. But this had none of that.
Is there any question about the fan demographic the XFL is trying to appeal to? Why not just name the team the Memphis frustrated males who still live with mom?
NBC, I thought they really had a handle on the press, and the press would treat us kindly.
All the NBC executives responsible for creating the XFL will be thrown to their death.
The XFL was a disaster. By the time Vince sat down with me, it had already recorded the lowest ratings in the history of American primetime television.
XFL ratings are down 75% from week 1.
I said to Vince in the green room beforehand, there are going to be some tough questions here. I think they'll be fair, but they'll be tough. He said, fine.
I thought it was going to go on and talk about the XFL and be friendly. And I was told that's what it was going to be. Costa started baiting me.
The pregame show, especially week 1,
We don't have any
was
pregame
one of the
shows.
most mindless things I've ever seen.
Bob did his job. He did it well. He got me.
You want to let me finish here for a second, pal?
I'm asking you the question.
Then coach, shut your mouth and let me answer the question, all right? I'll be happy to answer.
I find myself getting closer and closer. I can feel my hands like just visualizing, but if I had my hands wrapped around his skinny little neck.
You don't know what you're talking about.
The Mr. McMahon character is, in some sense, an exaggeration of traits that Vince has. So maybe in that moment, some of it melded.
Would you let me finish?
He is all up at Bob Costas' grill, and Bob Costas is back basically laughing. Because even then, people didn't really take professional wrestling seriously. And of course, he didn't take the XFL seriously, which makes me think he probably didn't take Vince all that serious. So Vince is very upset live on TV, and Bob Costas is getting a reaction he kind of hoped for, I think. Because you should see the grin on this dude's face right now.
Okay, with a big smile.
This is amusing me.
It's amusing you. You're amusing me.
Okay,
I was angry with myself, too, because I was set up and I should have seen it coming, and I didn't like an idiot.
It's not
You
WWF
should've.
enough for that crowd, and it's not good enough football for the sports-minded crowd.
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm what makes this company, I'm what makes my company and this country go round and round. I take risk.
The first season of the XFL, it turns out, will be the last. The league never took off with the audience, or certainly with the
That's people in the stands.
The XFL failed because it wasn't a good product. In its best years, the WWF and the WWE, on its own terms, was a very good product. This was not a good product.
I think the XFL folding after 1 year stung. I mean, Vince went all out on it. The XFL logo that people were seeing, it was Vince holding the XFL ball and looking in the camera.
shit. That was a shit.
During that time, it was not good. One after another, after another, after another.
The World Wrestling Federation cannot use WWF anymore. It got body slammed today by the World Wildlife Fund.
See, now they're gonna go into, as I try to pin a link on Instagram, because I'm sure Instagram is going to end in a second anyway. I don't even know why I'm doing it. All right, Instagram. This is the link to the YouTube channel where you'll see this whole video in its entirety in a couple of days on YouTube. Tonight we'll be recording live episode 7 of the Mick and Mike show, so this probably won't be out till Tuesday or Wednesday. But that's the link to the channel. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Back to this video. This is when they have to change their name because the World Wildlife Federation was also using the abbreviation of WWF for their company. And they wanted to be the sole company using it. So this is when the name change happened from World Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Entertainment.
We do most lawsuits. And it looked like, wait a minute, we're not going to win this thing. They had, in fact, used the initials WWF long before we did. So it changed from WWF to WBE because we were entertainment. It wasn't necessarily a good thing, the fact that we had to change our name. I didn't want to change. But you can't do anything about it. Once something is closed, you have to move on. Whenever there's a failure, and there have been a lot of failures in my life, if you allow it to fester, you're like, oh man, I wish that would have worked. If I had done this, that would have worked.
Where was the hotel and casino? Was it in Vegas?
Let it freaking go and think about something positive and work at something positive. Now anything is negative.
Vince, one of his, again, many axioms is don't sell. So it's not like he was moping around. Like if you went to work the next day after XFL was finally officially not coming back, you'd never know it. His focus was, okay, what do you got for Raw? Let's do it.
I remember having a conversation with Vince in one of the arenas, and he pulled me aside and he goes, I have this idea about bringing Hulk Hogan back, and I'd love for you guys to headline WrestleMania. What do you think?
Hogan versus The Rock WrestleMania.
I immediately said, I fucking love it. Icon versus icon.
When I went back after we spent 9 or 10 years being a big thorn in Vince's side with WCW and trying to put him out of business, basically, we did not talk about past.
He's caused me, Hogan has a great deal of frustration, and there were times that I wished I could choke him. But can't hold grudges in business. My philosophy is, despite what has happened personally, what does the audience want? All they want is to be entertained. So naturally, you swallow your pride and eat a nice plate of caca and bring them back, and there you go.
So special they are.
WrestleMania 18,
back on that
2002.
I have goosebumps now, covering my body.
Can't believe it's been this long.
That crowd was on fire, and we felt it.
There was this iconic moment, if you watch that, where they start absorbing the crowd reaction and simultaneously start looking to their left and right. That wasn't rehearsed. That wasn't talked about. Those were just like two legends knowing to do that in the heat of the moment. And that became the most memorable thing.
It was two eras colliding, and neither individual really knew the way the audience was going to react. I didn't. They were just ready for whichever way it went.
I'm supposed to be the bad guy. He's supposed to be the good guy. But I started punching me, and they started booing him out of the building. The script had to be changed.
The moment we stepped in the ring, the crowd let us know. We love you, Rock, but tonight, Hogan is the reason why you're here. I had to shift on the fly and nuance my way through this match. We didn't change the finish. I still went over that night. But the real winner was Hulk Hogan.
Did Vince ever
trusted you after going to WCW?
I think I'm probably at a higher level of trust now than I ever have. I think there's a certain level of comfort to know that I can't rip the shirt off and put 100,000 people building.
Every decision he makes is with an eye towards what's good for business. Bringing people back that he's fired,
Talking about trust with these two dudes is is unbelievable. These will be the last two people I would ever trust. Anything. But these two made a lot of money for each other. So I'm sure that there has to be some type of fondness there, even though they've disappointed each other in the past. It's got to be some type of closeness between Hulk Hogan and The Rock. That Hulk Hogan and The Rock match was very good, and at the time, I was at the point like I don't want to see Hulk Hogan drop a leg no more. No, I didn't want to see Hulk, but I thought he performed pretty well in this match against The Rock WrestleMania. I believe 18 in 2002.
back people who've testified against him in court, people who've gone on interviews and blasted him, and still bringing him back if he thinks, ultimately it helps the company.
I'll introduce you to the new general manager of Raw, Eric Bischoff.
People would always go like, "Oh, I'm so afraid to burn my bridge with Vince," and they go like, if you do, you probably have a better shot of going back than if you don't, because that's how Vince operates.
You think it's a control thing, or do you think
it's a challenge? I think it's a challenge. If you knock him,
I
he's
can
going to
agree
want
with
to
that.
prove at the end that you'll come back to him.
I can agree with that.
I don't think my
Almost
personal
like an
feelings
abusive
have ever
relationship.
gotten in the way of doing good business.
Well, there's one thing I've learned from the Montreal screw job. It's nothing sweeter than a good double cross.
I'm in business. And business comes first.
Plus Brad who came back.
From a general public standpoint, I think the hottest period they ever had would have been 98 to 2002, when they were from WCW and then killing WCW. And then after that, after WCW went down, the whole business went down. During the periods with no competition, wrestling's a lot less interesting. And as far as the creative end, they fell from their peak.
At that time, riding the lightning bolt, I'm on fire, but I was frustrated with the creative process.
There were some times when Steve would.
This is toward the end when Stone Cold Steve Austin decided he had pretty much had enough of the wrestling business. This is how they ended him. He decided that he didn't want to do it no more, as he will explain here. But also, to Dave Meltzer's point, how wrestling is a little bit more exciting when they do have competition. Now, I don't know if it's really competition, but AEW is at least an alternative product that you can watch. They have wrestling stars as well from around the world. They have big names. I still think the WWE product is better, but at least it's something else to watch and other places for guys to work. So, it's not just the monopoly of WWE. Wrestling was really good when you had all kinds of options. Like when I was small, I'm from Detroit, so I would get some world-class championship wrestling, a little bit of international championship wrestling. We could get the NWA, and the AWA. So I had a few things I could watch, and then those things started to go away, and we still had the USWA and ECW. Not really competition events except for WCW, which comes on later, but at least you had something else to watch. And these guys had other places where they could go perform and make at least close to the same amount of money or even more than they would make here in the WWE working for Vince. Unless they would have to go overseas and wrestle in Japan and make some good bread.
Idea, and he would go, I never say this. I don't like it. I don't like to create them.
Steve, lay it all on the line here. Give us the bottom line.
Bottom line is everything sucks. I'm not happy with the direction Stone Cold Steve Austin's going. I ain't happy with the direction Stone Company's going.
Things are not good at that point for Vince and I. But also, I had a lot of injuries. I decided I've had about enough. Probably be in the best of my interest to ride off into the sunset.
He was a huge star and he's gone.
It's a very malleable product, the WWE. Stars leave all the time. Someone like The Rock, because he took off in the movies. The Rock, him and Austin were probably 1 and 1A as far as being the top names in the company. Both of them were gone by 2004. And so now it's time to make new stars. So there was an infamous promo where
This
Vince
is
was
already
addressing the
proven he
Raw
can
roster.
do it.
More than any one quality that makes me the successful man that I am, I would have to say that one quality is...
And he's a ruthless aggression.
Ruthless aggression.
He gave a speech to the entire cast of performers and be like, guys, we are searching. This is the time. I need someone with ruthless aggression.
Who has enough ruthless aggression to make the necessary sacrifices?
I'm looking for someone who's gonna okay, I'm the fucking guy.
None of you wants to become a superstar.
At that time, I was, new and up and coming talent, so wasn't there for the on-camera speech. But 3 days after that, I was just at a television taping where The Undertaker couldn't make it.
Come on, guys, there's gotta be somebody back there that wants to seize the moment.
I needed somebody. And one person in the production meeting was like, how about John Cena? And that's how I got my first televised match.
John Cena, we heard a little bit about him.
It was against Kurt Angle, a marquee performer in the WWE.
What is the one quality that you possess that makes you think that you can walk out here and come into the ring and face the very best in the business?
John Cena basically says, why am I going to beat you? Because of ruthless aggression.
So
And then he hauls off on Kurt Angle. John Cena is proof that Vince can just make stars. Not that he isn't talented, because he is. But you lose Stone Cold, you lose The Rock. What now? What now? You lose Hulk Hogan. What now? And he continued to answer the questions. He gave the pep speech. I'm looking for somebody. And John Cena pretty much took the ball and started to run.
that kind of spawned the next few years or so and became, after the fact, known as the Ruthless Aggression era.
This was an era that was coming off of Virginia and then transitioning to an era of more realism. They were showcasing guys' ability, guys like Eddie Guerrero, guys like Kurt Angle. They were using people's real names. Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, Chris Benoit, Batista. It was a phase of realism. So I had to be John Cena. I really didn't know who I was. And I didn't have personality. I just kept being this guy. It was just uninteresting. Like I almost got fired for being that bad.
frustration by John Cena.
But when you kind of knew you were going to be out, I really wanted to have a little more fun. Some of the guys just happened to be rapping on the back of the tour bus. And I kind of got up in my seat and made my way to the back. And for 5 minutes, I shredded everybody. I didn't realize that Stephanie McMahon was on the bus. And she was like, "Would you like to do that on TV?" I said, "Fuck yes, I would."
Besides open mic, one thing that gets me boiled is an old school 30-man battle royal. I'ma win this. I'ma make my impression. No Vinnie Mac that I got ruthless aggression.
John had the ability to rap. Fingo, instead of being someone that you might want to cut, from the roster, is like, "Ooh, hang on. This is different. This is very different."
John Cena, the Doctor of Thugger.
Sometimes in life it's about finding a niche. And sometimes it takes a while to do that. And he could rap. He already had that skill. So they used it. And it helped to get him over.
I did it so well. All of a sudden he was a new star. And the audience loved it.
And the new WWE Champion, John Cena.
When you become and the audience understands you and reacts to you, that's when you begin to garner Vince's attention.
You myself, you come out here, you say what's on your mind, you don't give a damn about anybody else, do you?
That's when our relationship really began to pick up. Vince taught me a ton about the business and how to perform. As the rap persona, I took so many things that I saw and didn't like and crafted them into this character. It's the same thing Vince did with Mr. McMahon.
In terms of getting heat with my character, Mr. McMahon, one of my problems and one of my assets in life is when I think about doing something, I go try it.
Step. Listen be the name of Vincent K. McMahon.
Damn!
Was there ever a point during that time where you got
Push
the
the
script
kid
or
in
something,
the
or just like, this is too far?
Yeah. Screwed your brains out. And then Vince would make me do it anyway.
There was a bit of a concern amongst performers that if you didn't do what you were asked, that you would get punished. And yeah, it did happen to some on occasion, sometimes. There was one time where I was the champion at the time, and then suddenly I was in a scene where I was going to be making out with a female, which I didn't think my character wanted to do. Was it a coincidence that I lost the championship the next week? Maybe. Maybe I got punished. I'm not sure.
You said there were a few times that you said no. Do you remember some of the things you said no to?
Yes. Yeah, there were a couple, but yeah, I'm not going to tell the one.
So one of my storyline ideas was that Stephanie gets pregnant, and I think I was the one who impregnated her. My character. I think it was something like that. It was like, no, that one didn't make it.
Weird ass storyline. Disgusting storyline. But it will get a reaction, and people might actually watch that weird degenerate shit. Oof. Wow.
Mr. McMahon, the character Vince McMahon, the boss of WWE, and her father. It's hard to separate.
I call him Vince in business, and I call him Dad at home. My father is different than my boss. My boss can be tougher than my dad. He expects results, he demands results, especially from his family.
Vince, he didn't want to do total nepotism. It wouldn't reflect good on Vince. It wouldn't reflect good on Shane and Stephanie. So he had them in the trenches working various jobs before they came on, in prominent positions. And he was tough on them when Shane and Stephanie were pitching ideas. He'd flat out reject them. He'd flat out say they sucked. He wants to hold them to a higher standard.
Would you say your dad was tough on you growing up?
My dad was definitely tough on me growing up. Still is to this day.
I was harder on my kids in the business than anybody else. I guess it's because I wanted to be better than everybody else. And their last name is McMahon, so step the hell up.
Always a higher standard. I represent him, and it's very important to represent him correctly.
Let's come down here.
He was certainly easier on me than Shane, for sure. But I didn't challenge him the same way my brother did. I think there's a unique relationship there with fathers and sons.
Father and son. Wait a minute. Whoa.
They'll send you articles and books and whatever it is on family business. I've never seen one that was like, that was great. Got along great with my dad or whatever, and then he gave me the business and it all went great. We got along great right up till the day passed, and then, stuff happened. Stuff.
Shane, what are you doing?
You gotta look no further than Shane.
You never cared about me. I couldn't do anything right for you. Nothing is ever right. My business deals, no matter how much money I made you, was never good enough for you.
What the McMahon family has about it is.
Well, yeah, see, this is what I mean when I said earlier that he never physically abused his kids. But the mental abuse, especially with Shane, was probably prominent when you never feel like you're good enough. And I think when it comes to father and son relationships, sometimes that's a little harder. It's harder to show that type of love when you're, I guess, an alpha male or a real masculine guy. And, all Sheila Shane ever really wanted, as you would hear from the rest of this, is Vince's approval on things.
The internal dynamics of what goes on in real life. Like, is it that, cutthroat behind the scenes?
The only thing I ever wanted from you, the only thing I ever wanted is for you to be proud of me.
This was
But
actually
I finally figured out that's never
a
ever
shoot.
going to happen. Because it's never been about me. It's always been about you. You, Dad.
A shoot is real. It's not kayfabe. It's real. And he's performing on TV, but that interview was actually a shoot.
Family business anymore. This is my business. I would suggest that you get the hell out of here, whether you're my son or not, right now.
I never really quite understood where Shane fit into everything over the years. Sometimes he was being embraced, sometimes he was completely invisible. I never understood what was going on, but I always felt he was a little bit of the black sheep of the family.
That's Bonnie
and I never
Hammer,
knew what the
VP
actual
of
story was behind
USA Network.
what happened with
of
his
original
relationship with his
programming at
dad.
USA Network.
Shane absolutely wanted to be the next McMahon, and he always figured he would be. At one point, he wanted his dad to buy him a company that he could run and prove that he was the next generation McMahon promoter before he takes over WWE.
Last year, at the time, the UFC they got into some financial problems and came to us and said, "Would you like to purchase, the UFC?" I go, "This is cool." Well, I said, "Dad, let's just go for this one." I thought we could really grow that brand because it's tailor-made for what we do. We have a production team, we have a live events team, we have merchandising team, we have all of It's, just ready to go. So to me, it was plug and play.
When it was presented in terms of buying UFC, I didn't like that business model. Because our business model is you can create characters, much like Disney or someone else, and we can use them forever. As opposed to boxer slash UFC. Once you beat, once you're hurt or something, your career's over.
This is the real deal. There's no acting involved. There's no way these guys can act this good.
We're in show business. That's a sport.
So anyway, he thought about it and passed on the opportunity, and that was that.
Would have it been a good investment?
Oh, well, hindsight's always 20/20. It would have been an excellent investment.
10 years later or something, UFC was sold for a lot of money. And Shane, I think, wants to take credit for the idea of buying UFC. Shane really thought, that's the way to go. So if that's the way to go, Shane, you take it.
It's funny because the company that owns UFC owns the WWE now, and it's like a huge multi-billion-dollar company.
Shane had an idea that he really believed in, and Vince totally disagreed with it. And with most things that happen with Vince, once they start to escalate, they escalate really fast. And Vince finally turned to Shane and he said, "Not while I'm alive." And Vince, who was eating something, took his knife and handed it to Shane. And he says, "Right there. Come on. Right there. If you want this so bad, stick the dagger right here. Because that's what you're going to have to do to make that decision. And if you don't stick the dagger right here, then I know you're not man enough to do it. And I have to take that into consideration as well. Or you can buy me out the way I bought out my father. And if I don't get out of your way, be prepared to get rid of me the way I would have had to get rid of my father when he wasn't doing things my way at all."
It was a really hard decision for me to leave the only thing that I love and the only business I ever wanted.
Right, this is where Shane left. Shane, I guess, felt like, if I can't do this the way I want to do it, and the way his dad just challenged him, and, he, of course, didn't want to stab his, whatever. So he just left. And I don't think he really wanted to leave, but, his dad didn't really leave him a choice. If you ask me, either go up against me and be a total shark towards me, or you ain't man enough to make the decision anyway. So he decided to just part ways.
Working in my life. But my dad, especially then, was strong at the helm. And I was like, well, if this is the time for me to go try certain things, then that's the time.
But the reason why Shane left, Shane wanted to take the chair, so to speak, and thought it was time for me to leave. Shane had a lot of value, but it wasn't his company. It was mine. It's so difficult for family business. Damn, that's difficult. It was almost like we were opposed on everything, and we grew apart.
We just weren't seeing eye to eye on certain things. But he's the boss, and when he says we're painting something blue, we're painting it blue. And I was just like, I can either stay in here and watch us implode, or it's time to step back. He's my dad. I'm not gonna jeopardize that. So I decided to step away. So I thanked him, gave him a hug, and that was it.
Everyone has to understand their place. And when a family member thinks, wait a minute, I've got this.
Get to stepping. This is my show. I'm running things here.
They don't quite have the vision. It's someone who's grown and created a business. They have a different vision. And it may have worked, but you know what? We're going to go with my vision. I would advise anyone, don't bring your family into the business. It's brutal. It's somewhere along the line it's going to explode.
For decades, McMahon turned the WWE into a billion-dollar entertainment juggernaut. But recent events indicate that leadership could be changing. New bombshell allegations of sexual abuse. I mean, this is damning. It's insane. Are they going to jettison Vince? I don't know.
The future of this company very much hangs in the balance.
This most recent scandal is going to shock everyone.
So that was episode 5 of the Mr. McMahon documentary, and it's going to go into episode 6, and it's going to talk about some of the things that's going on now. They also reported that in 1999, Raina Lesnar, who was Raina Merrill back then, or Sable, settled her lawsuit with the WWE. Then, well, that's it. That was episode 5 of the Mr. McMahon documentary. I will be doing episode 6 soon. I probably won't do it live on Instagram, but you can go right to that link if you're on Instagram and join the YouTube channel, Mickey Coleman Mike Love. And we will be recording our first live show. I want to say thank you to everybody who subscribed to us, and now our first goal, we could go live. Now our next goal will be that 500 for the monetization. But right now, I just want to thank everybody for joining us and becoming a part of our YouTube family. And now you guys can watch us live sometimes. Since the other 4 episodes of this McMahon documentary was done pre-recorded, I am going to pre-record episode 6 too. It should be out later this week. This will be out Tuesday, so I might put this out next Saturday or even Sunday, or maybe a little earlier. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. For Mike, the team leader, Love, I am the Sports Doctor Spock, Mickey Coleman. Y'all have a great day. I'll see you soon.